The longer a woman has been without a close relationship, the more certain patterns and emotional shifts begin to take shape within her. Over time, the absence of a deep, intimate connection affects her in both visible and subtle ways. These changes often go unnoticed until one day she realizes she has adapted and evolved in ways she didn't anticipate. One of the first things that becomes evident when a woman has been single for a long time is a shift in her emotional state. Initially, there may be a sense of loneliness, longing, or even frustration at the lack of companionship. However, over time, these feelings tend to soften and morph into a quiet acceptance. She begins to focus more on her own growth and development, shifting her priorities from seeking external validation to finding inner fulfillment. The absence of a relationship forces her to become her own source of emotional support, and in doing so, she often becomes more self-reliant and self-aware. This shift towards independence doesn't mean she no longer desires a close relationship. On the contrary, her longing for companionship might still exist, but she learns to fill that void in ways that are healthy and constructive. She finds joy in her personal achievements, her hobbies, and her friendships. Her social circle becomes more important than ever as she learns to cultivate deep connections with those around her, often becoming more selective about who she allows into her life. Her standards for relationships become higher, not out of bitterness or resentment, but because she has come to understand what truly matters to her. This period of being without a close relationship also allows a woman to truly reflect on her past experiences. She becomes more introspective, analyzing her previous relationships with a sense of clarity that may have been absent before. She begins to understand patterns in her own behavior and the behaviors of those she's been involved with. She recognizes what worked, what didn't, and what she truly values in a partner. This introspection often leads to a greater understanding of what she needs in a relationship moving forward. She is no longer willing to settle for something that doesn't align with her values or bring her the emotional fulfillment she craves. As a woman spends more time without a close relationship, she also starts to develop a stronger sense of self. Her confidence grows, not from being validated by a partner, but from the realization that she is complete on her own. She no longer feels the need to constantly prove herself or seek approval from others. She becomes more comfortable in her own skin, finding contentment in solitude, but also learning how to enjoy her own company without feeling lonely or incomplete. Her sense of independence becomes a source of strength, and she begins to trust herself more, both in her personal decisions and in her ability to navigate life's challenges without needing someone else to lean on. However, this increased independence can also come with challenges when it comes to opening up to the idea of vulnerability in future relationships. The longer a woman has been without a close relationship, the more she may guard her emotions and become cautious about letting someone in. She's learned how to protect herself emotionally, and this can sometimes lead to a reluctance to trust or to lower her guard. In some cases, this emotional armor can create a barrier, preventing her from fully engaging in a new relationship, even if she desires one. She has become so accustomed to managing her emotions alone that the idea of sharing them with someone else can feel daunting. Another aspect that changes over time is her view of love and relationships. After years of being without a close relationship, a woman's perspective on love often becomes more realistic. She understands that love is not always the fairy tale experience she may have once imagined. She knows that a healthy relationship requires effort, communication, and compromise. She begins to understand that true love doesn't come without challenges, but it's the ability to face those challenges together that makes a relationship strong. She no longer seeks a partner just for the sake of companionship or to fill a void, but rather for mutual respect, shared values, and emotional connection. This shift in perspective also influences how a woman approaches her future relationships. She is no longer willing to rush into anything just to avoid being alone. Instead, she takes her time, allowing the relationship to evolve naturally. She no longer feels the pressure of societal expectations or the fear of being single. She knows that being single doesn't define her, and that her worth is not tied to her relationship status. She learns to be comfortable with the idea that love will come when the time is right, not because she's actively seeking it, but because she's focused on becoming the best version of herself. Her ability to recognize the difference between loneliness and solitude is another important lesson learned during this time. She understands that solitude doesn't equate to being lonely. In fact, she has come to cherish her alone time, seeing it as an opportunity for personal growth, reflection, and self-discovery. She has learned to fill her life with meaningful activities and relationships that nurture her spirit, making her feel fulfilled even when she's not in a romantic relationship. She knows that she doesn't need a partner to complete her, and that her life is rich and full, even without that specific connection. As a result of this deep introspection and personal growth, the longer a woman has been without a close relationship, the more she becomes aware of her worth. She understands the importance of self-love and self-care, and has come to realize that a relationship should add to her happiness, not be the source of it. She becomes more attuned to her needs and desires, knowing that her happiness is her responsibility, not anyone else's. This newfound clarity about herself and what she wants in a relationship makes her more attractive to potential partners, not because of external beauty, but because of the confidence and self-assuredness that radiates from within. The emotional maturity gained from being without a close relationship for an extended period also changes the way a woman communicates in future relationships. She has learned how to articulate her needs and boundaries clearly, and she knows that it's essential for a healthy partnership. She no longer tolerates unhealthy behavior and is not afraid to walk away from situations that don't align with her values. This emotional maturity allows her to engage in more meaningful and respectful connections, where both partners are equally invested in the relationship and work together to maintain a healthy dynamic. In conclusion, the longer a woman has been without a close relationship, the more she learns about herself. She becomes stronger, more independent, and more discerning in her choices. She gains emotional clarity, learns to trust herself, and develops a deep sense of self-worth. While the longing for companionship may never fully disappear, she comes to realize that her happiness is not dependent on another person. Instead, it is found in her own growth, self-love, and the meaningful connection she fosters with others. When the time is right, she will be ready for a relationship that complements her life rather than completes it.